The best practices for configuring Hyper-V: make sure you have adequate hardware, memory, processing power for the number of VMs that you want to run, and ideally you would have ongoing monitoring of that just to see how you're actually using those resources. Deploy virtual machines on separate disks. I always put a question mark under that. Now, if you have separate physical hard drives in your machine and you put virtual machines on different separate physical drives, naturally they're going to perform better. But if you have solid state drives in your machine, you could add 10 or more virtual machines to the same solid state drive, and generally speaking, they all perform exceptionally well because a solid state drive is just so fast. Now, with that said, it does depend on what your virtual machine is actually doing. A rule of thumb that I go by: if a virtual machine hosts a database, I will always put it on the same physical drive. Well, if it's a database of any size, like a SQL server, Exchange virtual machines, or anything like that, I would always use dedicated drives just so they have exclusive access and there's no disk contention. But that is certainly not a requirement. Do not co-locate other server roles. Meaning, my Hyper-V server should only be a Hyper-V server, should only host virtual machines. You should not make it a file server, print server, DHCP server, other roles. You absolutely can, but creating a bottleneck with these other services just becomes a concern. So you can, but ideally you would not. Managing Hyper-V remotely. We can manage Hyper-V from really anywhere. You can manage this remotely from a client like Windows 10 or Windows 7, 8, 8.1, any of those older OSs. You just manage all your virtual machines remotely. And we can also run Hyper-V on our server core. As we talked about earlier, server core is an operating system without a GUI. Only has a command prompt interface, no graphical user interface. Not as big of a deal as it sounds, because you would simply manage everything through graphical tools on a remote machine. The advantage of that would be the host would consume less resources if it's server core compared to being a graphical server. But you could install Hyper-V Manager on any other server or client, and you would manage it exactly the same as you would manage a graphical server. So there's no loss of functionality or commands or PowerShell that you would be forced to use if you deploy this on a server core, so that would not be a concern.